I'm here this afternoon in Kerrville, Texas, with Paul Sutliff from, I believe you said you live in Rochester, New York?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Would you give my audience your background? What's your field of expertise?
I have a bachelor's degree in religion and philosophy. I studied to be a pastor.
Okay.
And then I went to school to become a special education teacher. So I have a master's out of Nazareth College in education.
All right.
I am also a published research writer in the field of special education and in cults.
Okay. That's
So-
an interesting combination.
Well, my undergraduate degree was studying to be a pastor, so it kind of fits, and that's what I was
Yeah.
doing beforehand. But
Okay.
now I found out that the Muslim Brotherhood was at Nazareth College. So that's what got me into this field entirely.
Ah.
And I'm going to talk about that tonight, but when you discover something and you get told you can't talk about it,
Ooh.
and you're already a published research writer, it's
Woo!
like setting somebody on fire.
Yeah.
So, I just did what I could to get the truth out. I got blacklisted. So I got blacklisted for doing that, and that's what set me on fire. And let me just say, I've done tons of research, and the more I found I didn't know, it got scarier and scarier. So I wrote my first book, Stealth Jihad Phase 2, Infiltrate American Colleges, because to me that was the biggest important thing, that they were infiltrating the colleges. As I spent more time learning about what the concept of civilization jihad actually means, I discovered there is actually 4 different levels of it.
Oh.
And that's what I'm getting into tonight.
Okay.
It's civilization jihad takes place in 4 levels. They started in the colleges.
Yes.
Then they went to your public schools.
Yes.
And they went to your society.
Yes.
And I mean by that we can talk about things as simple as American society is a very generous society. So we're talking about nonprofits. We're talking about implementing Sharia and a few other different variations of that. When you get into the concept of giving, getting into how we donate to charitable organizations, and all of a sudden this particular organization, which appears legit, is actually giving money to organizations like Hamas, then we have difficulty, or organizations like Al-Qaeda. It destroys the American fabric
Yes.
of society.
Yes.
So that's and the last element that they're getting into is government.
Yes.
And now we have,
Yes.
in Canada, we have a Muslim premier. United States of America, we have a Muslim president.
Yes.
We have a Muslim head of the CIA.
Yes.
We have a Muslim AG, Attorney General.
Yes.
I can go on and list all these people. There are people who are working in the White House. There is an overrepresentation of Muslims working currently in the White House.
Yes.
And that's another difficulty. I mean, you look at what's going on and what should be going on. These are disproportionate problems as far as the influence that they're having for the purpose of implementing jihad. And what I'm going to talk about tonight has to do with them coming here in the 1960s with a plan to implement Sharia here in the United States and make it a Muslim country.
Yes.
And this is a long-standing fight that they plan and very secretively work towards daily.
And they don't think American society is microwave, instant.
Yes.
We don't even conceive the thought of thinking something generationally or long-term, but that is the basis as to how they think.
Well, it is the basis to how they think now, from the 60s on. And I'm saying this plan was probably developed back in early 60s. And where the 4 to 6 young Muslims came here as students and worked into schools, and from that point on. I mean, their names are well known, Jamal Brzezinski being one of them. I have a whole list of people I could share with you later.
Yeah.
It'll blow your mind. I actually have put together, when I first started doing this, I actually drew it out in a spider web type thing where all the people's names were, and I ended up putting pictures in. And I'll give you a copy of that graph.
Oh, great.
To share with
Yeah.
people.
Right. We'll insert it so that they can see what you're talking about.
It's an amazing thing when you start looking at how they're connected. David Gowitz called it incestuous relationships between things like the Muslim Student Association, ISNA, CARE.
Is that Chris's dad, David
Yes.
Gowitz?
Yes.
Okay, I pronounce it
Yes.
Gowitz. I may be mispronouncing it.
I mean, I'm not. I've always pronounced Gowitz, so I don't know if I'm right. The fun thing about being from different states, we have different accents.
That's true. That's true. Yes, I met Chris and his son, who was the subject of the book Muslim Mafia. that his dad and another gentleman wrote.
Yeah, yeah. David Galbitz, it's P. David, yeah, because he likes to be called David. I don't know if I think it was Peter, his first
Yeah,
name. And I got a chance to talk with him once. It was by miracle. It was a birthday gift.
Oh, fabulous.
I don't know how it happened. He just called it my birthday. And I told him thank you for the birthday gift. But,
How fun.
my biggest question to him, out of all the time I wanted to talk to him, it was this one thing: is how did he discover Jamal Barzinji was the Mosul of the Muslim Mafia? Because I had discovered this. Again, I have no access to top secret information. He was the only person who could have been the leader through just doing basic research without any access to anything secretive. And that's my point. I mean, so
Yeah.
he looked at. I showed him my research, and he says, "I can't tell you how I have because I'm in court." He was in
Yes,
court over
yes.
the documents they had recovered.
And that is still an ongoing battle right
I didn't
now.
realize they were still in there.
Yes, there is, some aspect of it is still lingering that they hope to get resolved soon.
Okay.
And I just saw Chris first week in June, so they were looking at hopefully this fall.
If we just pray for God's blessings for that, because if everything goes right, in many ways America will be freed from a mess. If those documents that they have can be released, America will be safer. It's extremely important they're allowed to release those documents.
Yeah.
He was trying to tell me the documents they have implement Jamal Barzinji as the past, because he's dead now, as the past leader of the Muslim Mafia. It's more likely now that one of the possible leaders who was being groomed was Shingeti. Not even sure if I'm saying his name correctly.
Oh, it sounds good to me. I can't pronounce any of them.
But Shingeti was being trained by Jamal Barzinji to be his replacement
Wow.
at IIIT, the International Institute of Islamic Thought.
You know, that's the thing that Americans truly don't realize is this long-term plan that's been they're just right on track with their timetable that they set and infiltrating all these different areas. And while we've been just bebopping along, living life, they've been moving forward with their agenda.
It's based on, we have to understand that their concept of time is slightly different, and their concept of the urgency is different. And this is where the Muslim Brotherhood differs from groups like Al-Qaeda. Their goal is to implement things and do it slowly because that way it'll take a longer effect. And that's part of what they believe. So you'll hear, this is one of the reasons why the Islamic State, which is, again, Islamic State is a child of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is a child of the Muslim Brotherhood. All the leaders who are in the Islamic State, all the leaders are former members of, and are considered active members of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
So these are, I mean, you
Which
gotta
is
keep putting it out.
unindicted co-conspirators of the
Yes.
Holy Land Foundation trials,
Well-
which was here in Texas.
We can't say the whole Muslim Brotherhood, but we can say, because the Muslim Brotherhood in itself is, one of the chapters is, this is over, is Hamas is simply a chapter in the Muslim Brotherhood, and that was what that was all about. So the whole thing is indicted and unindicted co-conspirators.
Right. That's true. That's true.
But it's a scary organization. Ryan Morrow was one of the first ones to recognize my writing, and he works for Fox News, and he's a very, very encouraging person. Encouraged me to write, and that's why I ended up doing my first book. And you know, I got encouraged to do my second one because I had a critique. It wasn't academic enough. So I was kind of offended by the person who dared to tell me that. And this is a person who I went to when I complained, hey, it's your fault Nazareth took money from a group that's related to terrorism. And she says, well, they don't do anything bad anymore.
Oh, gee. Yeah.
Anymore?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's the head of their history department.
Wow.
So I
my.
blamed her, and she said, well, I says, so what do you think of my book? And it's not academic enough. And so I went back and I put together something called Civilization, Jihad, and Myth, Modern Islam. And I started originally writing to the academics, and I'm like, that's not what God wants me to do. God wants me to write to the average Joe. I mean, the academics should already know this information. There's no excuse for them not knowing it. But the average Joe doesn't know. So I wrote to the average person.
Good.
And that's one of the reasons I'm finding, quote, fame that I'm getting now. Because I don't feel it's my job to inform the academics, they have a responsibility to already have this information.
I agree.
And
Now-
I'm a teacher. I'm here to teach people.
You said that you were blacklisted,
Yes.
so that you couldn't talk. Well, let's talk about what they were trying to shut you down. And it had to do with the aspect of education in that field?
It had to do with saying that the Nazareth College of Rochester had taken $500,000 from a group affiliated with terrorism.
Lovely.
Now, Nazareth College of Rochester has the guy who's behind it all is the name Muhammad. This is my biggest problem. My learning disability is word finding. I have to think sometimes. I'll think of his name in a minute. But the professor at Nazareth, he has a CV, and on his CV, most professors post their CV, curriculum vitae, or resume. It's the same
Now, what's a
thing.
CV?
CV is a resume.
Okay, for us non-academics, that's
Yes.
not our usual term, okay?
They use the term curriculum vitae and they abbreviate it to CV. And it's,
Okay.
if you're in Europe, you'll hear CV or curriculum vitae. If you're here in America, you'll hear resume.
Okay.
But he posted it, and most professors do on their sites. Interesting part about this, and I recommend to anybody who goes to a school who has a person who is a Muslim professor at their school, look at their curriculum vitae, their resume, and if they list something just as odd as this, this is a doctoral person with a doctorate. He listed who his doctoral advisor was. Extremely unusual on an academic resume. Extremely unusual. Usually you find, well, I went to school here, I did this, I wrote these things. Oh, that's what the standard is. I have done these things is what you're looking for on a resume.
Okay.
Listing a doctoral advisor, the purpose of this one, when I looked it up, he listed his doctor. This is Dr. Muhammad Shafiq. I'm talking about. My word finding
Okay.
came back.
Okay.
Dr. Muhammad Shafiq listed Dr. Ismail Faruqi as his doctoral advisor. There's a reason why he listed him.
Okay.
Well, you and I wouldn't get it, and I didn't. But I thought something was off. So because I'm just smart enough to think something's off, I look who Dr. Faruqi is. Dr. Faruqi is one of the founders of the Muslim Student Association. He's one of the founders.
That's where I heard the name. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. You connected my dots, okay?
The FBI didn't know.
Okay.
I did call the FBI.
Oh, very
I
good.
did inform them.
Helpful.
And I have no problem saying that because I did it. Well, they were like, oh, thank you very much. And what they really wanted from me to do was direct them to the website where he posted his curriculum vitae, and they looked at that. So whether they want to, I have no problem admitting I called the fun thing is all this stuff is publicly available. My question is, why don't the FBI do their job and say, you're a danger to our community? And take them out, because they were following them around. And when I was in high school, they were following around with video cameras, secret taping, and things like this. Why?
The ones that I have spoken with that are former FBI on up in the high echelon that are no longer there is because when they did report to who they had to report to, it was, let's say, an uncomfortable truth.
Yes.
And so therefore, they are no longer with the FBI.
John Guandolo is one
Exactly.
of the people I talk with. I've had a chance to meet with him, and we've had some interesting conversations on this light. One of the things I actually value with our conversation is his biggest concern is subject matter experts.
Yes.
And I'm going to mention maybe a small piece of that tonight. The biggest problem we have today is we have the people in government who are listening to, quote, wisdom. Their wisdom they're listening to is from people who are Muslim, who are already lying to you about what they believe.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a whole game game set up to make you look, to take the stupidity and put it supreme in everything. This is why my goal right now, my immediate goal is to create a site for educators to go to. And I've got a GoFundMe page for this. What I want to do is raise $2,000 to put together a site for educators to go to, and public school educators in specific I'm hoping for right now, to make it free for them to go to. And all they can do is go to the page and say, is my textbook accurate regarding Islam? So I'm looking at the book that I reviewed is, I'll think of the name in a minute.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right.
This particular book had 23 historical errors. And two problems of prejudice. The two problems of prejudice had to do with two parts of this chapter. Referred to Muhammad as the prophet. It didn't say Muhammad the prophet, it said the prophet. Doing that is a problem of prejudice in academic circles. You're saying you believe this rather than taking it out of the sphere of
Okay.
saying could be. I mean,
Okay.
if you have a belief that's structured that way. So they don't do that with Jesus. They don't call him the Christ. They don't call, they might say Buddha who calls himself the Enlightened One. They don't say he is the Enlightened One.
Right, okay.
And so they don't do this anywhere else in the book. So looking at that as an issue, we see this problem of prejudice growing. There are so many things that are in this book that are untruthful. Here's one of the things that are in this chapter. They talk about the Dome of the Mosque. And they say, well, that's where Muhammad ascended into heaven. They left an important part out. See, Muhammad got on this strange flying animal. Think about that never-ending story, pink, fluffy thing that flew from wherever, an imaginary tail type thing. So Muhammad got on this winged creature and flew from Mecca all the way to Jerusalem. One problem is, he didn't do it during the daytime. He didn't do it really at nighttime. He did it in his dream. And that's his one miracle. He flew in a dream
Wow.
to Jerusalem and saw the temple. Problem. There was a church standing there when the temple he supposedly saw was there.
Uh-huh.
So they say that's where the Dome of the Mosque is. Here's a problem with that. We have somebody comes along after Muhammad's dead and says, this is where it's built. How do you know where something happened in somebody else's dream?
Good question.
So this is a problem I propose. I mean, so you're telling kids one thing, but you're lying to them about what actually. This is a problem. This stuff should not be happening in textbooks, regardless of whatever topic it is. But it's prevalent in this particular area, over and over again. I've reviewed personally about 5 or 6 different textbooks, and I look at them because I teach social studies in high school level. I'm one of those people who have been awarded a national award called Who's Who in American High Schools. I've got it from Who's Who, and I've received it from Cambridge also. Now, this tells you I'm not just your average teacher. I do my
Right.
work.
Yes.
I'm respected by my fellow teachers as somebody who does excellent research, and I thank my time as a library clerk. Amazing what you can learn in a seminary library, how to do search tools and things like that. So I can find things a little easier to people. So they come to me when if they're doing a master's paper or a doctoral paper, they'll come to me and ask me for help to find things. And that's part of the fun I have. But if I can do those things, and I'm teaching my students how to use those skills as well, my problem is the average American isn't doing the search for themselves.
No.
So they don't have those tools. This is why I want to make it available to educators, so they don't have to go looking wherever they're not even asking the question now. They're just trusting that what they get is accurate. Social studies teachers, I learned, are generalists. They're taught tons of things about history, but they don't become specialists. So you get a person who
Good
graduates for social studies, to teach social studies, they have learned U.S. history. They've learned a lot about world history, but they don't specialize and say, well, let's do European studies. Let's do world history. Certain areas of world history. Well, I have accidentally somehow become a scholar in this area. So what have I done? I've read the Sirah, Ibn Ishaq's Sirah. I have read the Quran. I have read a good portion of the Hadith. And
Book of Muhammad?
Sorry. My favorite, I have a few favorites of the Hadiths. And you have to understand, one of the things that I also found an error in this book that is not taught in schools is that they tell you Muslims, their holy book is the Quran. That's not exactly true. They have the Quran and the Sunnah, which is the Hadith and the Sirahs. Now, the Hadiths are stories that have been collected, but the Sirahs are supposed to be the biographies, and Ibn Ishaq's is one of the most valued ones. So I'm going with his, and it's very, very fascinating very, very important. He records the genocide that Muhammad committed. He records a number of things that are just, you just have to sit there and go, why?
Yeah.
I mean, one time he talks, this is one of the things I think is every teacher should teach this. This is the kind of man Muhammad was. He's attacking a people. They're doing quite well at it. They're not losing. And one of his men says, what makes God laugh? Now, interesting part about that. Muhammad had just made a statement that implied that nobody would die. But nobody will die. But if they do, they'll go to heaven. So you heard, nobody's going to die, but. And then he says, this guy comes up, so what will make God laugh? He says, take off all your armor and go in. Don't we call that suicide bombing today? So this suicidal action is encouraged by this prophet, person who calls himself a prophet. And nobody talks about this being encouraged today. This is in their books, their history. New York State teaches our students to believe that that Islam spread through the golden salt trade. It's actually a question on the Regents exam in New York State.
Say that again?
They say that Islam spread through cultural diffusion, through the golden salt trade. So when the people were trading golden salt, all of a sudden they learned about Islam and everybody accepted it. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Islam spread through the sword.
Yes.
It was battle after battle after battle, and it's one of the
bloody
reasons,
horror.
Extremely. And I'm standing in a classroom this year, and I don't want to be rude to the teacher and tell him he's teaching something wrong, but at the same time, it's very hard to go up and tell someone, yeah, New York State told you to say this, but we have to tell the truth. And he's accepting what New York State says. I can prove to him otherwise, and then he has to question whether, this is what it comes down. Do I want to tell New York State they're telling a lie? And I think it is that educators, public educators have a duty, especially, I'm picking on public educators as a whole, you have a duty to tell the truth regardless. I don't care what it is. That's your responsibility, especially as a social studies teacher. If we don't do those
Or you're
things.
complicit with the plan of the Islam to change history and the facts and everything.
And that's my accusation about this manipulation of textbooks. It's called the Islamization of knowledge. It's an actual professed study. And guess who started that? Ismail Faruqi. And guess who got involved with it? Dr. Muhammad Shafiq. So I've spent a lot of time reading their books on these things.
So how much, in your opinion, from the research you've done, how much has it really crept in to the education, into our textbooks?
There is not a school in the United States that I am aware of that actually has probably a textbook that has accurate information.
That's tragic.
I didn't realize, in New York State, we didn't start teaching on Islamic civilization until Common Core was implemented. It is Common Core that forced all these schools to have this misinformation. A lot of schools only taught...
When was the implementation of Common Core? Because Texas had kind of fought,
You were ahead of the game. You had it before anybody else.
Yeah.
They were using you as a model.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you say you fought, but they were actually using TEXES as the model.
Wow.
So, for Sharia implementation, Texas is ahead of everybody.
Yes, we have a Sharia law court in Richardson. We have two?
You have one in Austin. We have
one in Austin.
One in Houston, I believe.
No, Richardson. Richardson, Texas, up
That's
in the
another one.
Metroplex.
That's another one.
Was the original one. So we have one.
That's the one Irving you're talking about, right?
I think, well, anyway, Metroplex, we'll be safe.
I'm going to put that up on the screen tonight.
Okay.
There are two that I found in Texas.
I'll be darned.
And they're still operating.
I will look forward to having that information.
They're not calling themselves Sharia courts.
No, of course not.
They are calling themselves tribunals.
Oh, well, okay.
What is a tribunal? It's a court.
Yeah,
and
yes.
It's semantics, and that's what they're trying to get away with.
I'd love to have that information and share with a particular attorney. Okay.
Well, according to the law, they're not allowed to do this.
Yes.
And if you read their site, which I'm going to show everybody tonight, a little video of it, and it's mind-blowing that this stuff is happening, and unfortunately, the truth is, it is. And you can only do so much at a time sometimes to fight it.
And people need to understand the impact when you do bring, one of the battles we fought in the legislation last year, and it is being brought back for January of this year, is what's called American Laws for American Courts, ALAC. And, just in Texas alone, just the court cases that have already transpired here where a judge gave Sharia law precedence over our Constitution, which is against the Constitution they swore to become a judge.
Yes.
Yes.
We have this happening throughout the United States. ALAC is not a condemnation of Sharia. It's not a condemnation of any other law. It's a condemnation of using laws outside this, that were manufactured outside the Constitution.
Yes.
And
Well
that's
said.
all it is. It just says you can't use those in our courts of law. It's a pretty simple standard because we can't use our laws in their country.
Oh,
It's
no.
that simple.
Or within their tribunals.
Or yes, you can. So one of the important things to consider about this, if we want to accept Sharia to be used in a court of law, if the Florida the Florida shooter had survived, and we were to go and his defense was going to be based on Sharia. Look, Sharia says one of the exceptions to the penalty for murder is a Muslim for killing a non-Muslim. He
True.
can't be true. He cannot be punished.
Right.
So we would have to let him go free.
Yes, just that simple.
Yes. So
Not even having to bring into the fact that that was also a gay bar where he did the shooting, and that once again falls into their laws of
So there's a
extermination.
whole bunch of things that could happen. And one of my favorite things to do with Muslim cabbies that I get in with, I'll ask them, when I realize they're Muslim, I'll say, do you really believe Muhammad's the perfect man? And they always say, yes. I said, do you have a daughter? And they'll say, a lot of times they say, yeah, okay. Are you okay with her being married at 6 and bedded at the age of 9? And they'll go, oh. I says, well, are you okay with it? And they're trying to figure out if they should say yes or no, because to say no means they don't believe Muhammad is a perfect man anymore.
Right.
And to say yes means they have no problem with pedophilia. So to say that to somebody while you're driving, yeah, kind of creepy. But that's the logic. There is no logic behind this religion. And if you use logic, my goal as a Christian is to make sure people understand. Logic is important to understand. They've taken it out of our schools.
Yeah.
It is no longer in your math curriculum. Thank you, Common Core. It's removed. Well, what is logic? Logic is the foundation of all knowledge.
Yeah.
And once you steal that, you steal the education of children. And until we put that back in, I have a degree in religion and philosophy. I spent numerous hours learning logic. And I thank my professor, Dr. David Basinger, out of Roberts Wesleyan College for that. He is an outstanding teacher, and I still value many of the things he taught me. I would not know and be able to explain things as I do today without his knowledge. This is such an important thing. We look at things today on how things are put together. We look at building blocks, how things are explained. My students in my classroom learn about things differently because of how I understand philosophy and religion. So my kids, when I first started teaching, we'd start talking about Hitler, and there's a huge disconnect between the Cold War era and the kids of today. They can't grasp some things. So they're like, why was Hitler why was he so evil? Why was he this?
Yes.
So I don't even give them the chance to ask that question anymore. I start the whole topic by teaching the concept called the Übermensch by Nietzsche. That Übermensch translates to the word Superman. And so because I teach that, my kids understand that there's two different levels of belief regarding ethics. The Übermensch believed he could do no wrong. Whatever he believes is right.
Okay.
Kind of like somebody we call a narcissist. Who could that be? There's somebody called POTUS today that we pretty much diagnose as a narcissist. But the Superman, according to Nietzsche, is never wrong, and whatever he chooses to do is right. He's at that certain level. So when I explain it to the kids, I says, now, when I talk to them about the things, I go in and I start talking about what Hitler did. And I talk about World War II after that. And the kids will just go, Übermensch.
Oh, I love it, because then they understand that concept before the fact is given to them.
Yes.
And so it stacks the right way instead
They
of...
never ask me again why he did it.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because he liked Nietzsche. And it's the first, when I
So what's your parallel with Hitler and what we're seeing
It's building
today?
blocks. You have to look at things logically.
Okay.
And that's where our brains are set up to take things. We take things in sets of three, and we tell you you have to build into little packets. This is part of teaching skills. You learn that things go in. If you put things together logically in what teachers call scaffolding methods,
Okay.
then you can learn easier. Telling the truth about and putting things in a logical format about what Islam truly teaches rather than what it does teach, and disables Islamic ability to spread, its ability to be deceitful. Because if you're informed through logical means of understanding, they have nothing they can use. They can't fool you with lies because you're informed. And again, if you're just taking things logically, looking at what they say, and you find out I'd say probably in the United States, I'd say close to 90% of Muslims are unaware of what Islam really teaches.
Yeah. Well, a lot like Christians are
Yes.
about the word.
Well, and the difference is in churches, and good churches, I'll say, we teach this, that just because you're in a church doesn't make you a Christian. Just because you
That's
say you're a
right.
Christian doesn't make you a Christian.
That's right.
The Muslims this is the interesting part of that. The Muslims say, if you are born your father is a Muslim, you are born a Muslim. Those people who say, we don't say that about Christianity. Christianity is not something you're born into. You can be born into a Christian family, but it doesn't make you Christian.
Right.
And that's an extreme difference. And it doesn't get communicated, again, in the schools. These are important differences that should be looked at in a logical manner. I mean, comparing what each belief is. Being born into something versus, it's like being born into nobility, you're already there.
Ah.
And if you can't change it, this is where they start executing people because they change their faith. And they're still doing that in Pakistan today. They're still doing that in Saudi Arabia, in other places, Iran, Iraq,
Yes,
Syria.
yes.
Still happening today. So to say that these are very backwards beliefs, we can't use that term anymore
No.
because it's happening today.
Right.
Regardless if they did happen
It's
years
their
ago.
mental perspective, which is totally different than ours. They're operating from a different base
Yes.
than what our culture and our
I had a student from Lebanon one day. He came up to me and he said, "You Christians don't understand." He says, "You can't understand this. This is the difference." He says, "I'm going to ask you a question," and says, "I want you to answer it." He says, "Okay, what would you rather lose, your wife or your land?" I says, "My land, of course. I don't want to lose my wife." And he says, "Now you understand why you're different." I says, "So what's different?" He says, "To the Muslim, we'd rather lose our land because we can always get another wife."
They can have 4.
Yes.
Yeah, all at one time.
You can never get your land
And
back.
rotate your wives as needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, as, tired of this one, we'll take on a new wife and send one
So they
home.
really do have a different mindset. They do operate a lot on the basis of fear.
And women are property, just to go back to the land and the wife comparison,
And this
we're
is what they
property.
don't teach in schools. They'll teach that they had more rights than they do than Christians, and that's another lie.
Yeah.
And, okay, they are actual physical property. They do not have rights of inheritance that their brothers do.
Yeah.
In the United States, that's one of the big cases that keeps going to court. Probate laws keep going up, and they'll say, well, if they're both Muslim, they both should agree to this. And that's one of the fights to bring Sharia in. And what it is so if you have let's say a person had a daughter, and that daughter became Christian, and she has two Muslim brothers. The Muslim brothers are going to try to get her out entirely because under Sharia law, she has no rights to maybe a fifth of what they have. I can't remember the exact number. It's like 50% less than what they get.
Yeah,
In the United States, we protect all of our children, not just the males.
yeah. Now, it takes 2 women to equal 1 man in a court of law.
Yes, and this is why I'm also in the case against Nikki Haley. I'm an expert witness against Governor Nikki Haley and against President Obama. I've written a piece calling this the rape
So
culture.
what's the trial, for those that don't know?
Well, Governor Nikki Haley has been pushing the refugee resettlement program on South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
We call her the traitor rhino. She says one thing to get elected, and she does another thing in reality.
Okay.
So she's dangerous.
We have a lot of rhinos in Texas, too. We understand.
But I'm out of New York State, and
Yeah.
I have a friend who's the lawyer down there, Lauren Martell, and she's also running hoping if anybody has extra cash, throw it that way, because this is going to be a national case, and it's not by her choice. She wanted it to be a South Carolina case. Interesting thing about that, when you start saying you're going against somebody because they're bringing Muslims here, all of a sudden, certain people get upset. Because you
Yeah.
start telling the truth, and it gets exposed.
Very inconvenient
So all of a
truth.
sudden, the Southern Law Poverty Center.
SPLC? Yeah, I made their
Southern Poverty
list.
Center. Oh, God bless you. You're worthy of it. Well,
They
I'm
invaded
sure I'll
one of
be
my
on there
conferences.
soon. But they decided to get involved in this case. And because they decided to get involved in this case, they're behind one of the private refugee resettlement programs. They provide the lawyers.
Ooh, yes.
So they wanted in. So we were originally going to fight this, and Lauren is a very smart young lady. She actually talked to and got some good advisors to help her out with the case, because they wanted to go federal. And it ends up being better for us. We were going to fight it, and no, because now we can name, Barack Obama is now named, and there are several others now
Oh,
named.
fabulous.
So if you look at the evidence we have and the factual evidence that's available, it's mind-numbing. You can look up my affidavit. It's a free, available online. I'm going to put it up on my site pretty soon. I double check when I get I want to make sure I can put it up. And when you write an expert witness thing, you're probably not supposed to, but now that it's public access, I probably can. I got to double check that myself. But
Yeah.
it's because it's now public access and available to everybody. It's probably fine. It's simple things out there that are so truthful. I mean, going back, this is a rape culture. They're
Yes.
coming here, and you have children committing rape against children. And this is the stuff we saw recently.
Well, Elizabeth Sabadich Wolf, in speaking Tuesday night in San Angelo, talking about the refugees that are infiltrating Austria now, they don't call them refugees, they call them,
Migrants.
or even migrants. They are calling them rape-o-gees.
Refugees.
Refugees, yeah. Because that is, I mean, and that's hard for Americans to understand. A year ago, this wasn't happening, and now she and her daughter carry alarms on them at all times because they pull women and children into the town squares and gang rape them,
Yes.
and no one comes to your aid,
Yes.
and we can't comprehend, but it's happening.
This is the stuff I actually write about in the affidavit. It is a rape culture simply because it is designed around, if you have to have two women present to see it and one man, okay, if you have to have two witnesses, and let's say there's only one woman and one man, that's not enough. You have to have two women and one man.
And you have to have 4 men
And
to
only two men for rape, because you have to have two witnesses. If you had two
I thought it
males,
was
great.
4, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's two males equal as testimony. The issue here is male. You have to have the representation. You can't have just one man.
And they're not going to turn against the other, so,
And that's true, because then they're damaging their own ability to go rape somebody.
yes.
So this is, again, it's a rape culture that we're inviting into America. We're beginning to see it here.
Yes.
If we don't wake up and stop what is actually illegal, which is Islam is actually illegal in the United States because it's a totalitarian form of government. It is
not a religion.
It is
Thank
not a
you.
religion. It is a
No.
political entity.
And we've got to pull that title off of it.
Yes.
Because that is what is hanging it up everywhere for us to
This is the
fight
other
it.
thing I want to do for the United States education system is to take and look at the simple thing. If you look at Islam, it's by their own admission, by giving it a year one. Year one starts when Muhammad becomes a political leader. Okay, it doesn't start when he was going out preaching. It doesn't start when he had his first vision. It doesn't start when he had his first visit from Gabriel. I mean, it doesn't start then. It starts when Muhammad becomes a political leader, when Islam becomes political.
Yeah.
And if we look at that, so Islam is now a political entity. And if you look at that, I just going by what they teach and what they're telling us it is not a religion.
Absolutely.
If you talk to any Mohammedan or Muslim, whichever you choose to term you use for them, they will tell you Islam is not just a religion. What they're trying to tell you is it's political. And it's extremely important to let them say that, because you then understand that they're telling you they're not a religion.
That's right.
And by that rights, now we have to talk about totalitarian forms of government, which would make them unable to operate in public school environments.
And it's easier then to speak that we are at war with this other government.
Yes.
Because it's not a religion, it is a government.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's an extremely... The reason why we are so ignorant today is because in 1918, they were torn apart and they were done. The caliph has been deposed since then. I believe 1918 is the right year. What did the last caliph do? He issued a fatwa, which is a very important one to look up. If you buy my book, you can find it in the back of the book. The 1915 fatwa led to the Armenian genocide. It said to go kill all the non-Muslims, except the good Austrians and Germans. Okay. Wait a minute, because that's the deal.
Yeah.
Well, the Muslims at the time period were very upset. You said not to kill the Austrians and Germans. They weren't. So that gave them license to go and kill all the Christians and Jews and anybody not them. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm talking on a LinkedIn site. So somebody put up a picture of these Muslims saying things like, "I don't eat pork." Another one saying, "I love Jesus." And it's like, excuse me, it's against the Quran for them to say that. You are supposed to not take the Christian or the Jew as your friend. Let's get the truth out. So somebody writes back, "That's not true." Blah blah blah. It's like, so my question is, why, if I'm not Muslim, do I know more about your belief structure than you do? And again, it's because they have a culture of illiteracy. They don't want you to actually read the documents. This is the difference between the Protestants. And I'm picking on Protestants because their belief structure involves you must learn more about this Jesus that came to save you. And the only way to do that is to read the Bible. Okay? You don't need to take your pastor's word for it. There's no requirement to go to church. If you want to learn more, it's a great place to go. And if you want a fellowship, it's a great place to go.
Yep.
There's no requirements. You have to have faith. Oh, but where can you learn more?
And without faith, it's impossible to please God.
So all you have to do is open this book, and if you can read, it's there for you. We call it one of the names for we call it today as a passport to life. And
interesting.
if you think about that, there's actual books called Passports to Life.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that term.
It's a play on words from the John Bunyan's book, Pilgrim's Progress, and people have taken his Pilgrim's Progress and renamed it Passport to Life and things like that. But the thing is, it's actually talking about the Scripture, the beloved Bible that tells the truth. And I say, if you don't believe that, be like Josh McDowell. Go check it out for yourself. Yeah. And I can't even express how many times I've tried to prove others wrong, and you know what? I've had to turn around. Again, losing logic. I've been wrong, and I've had to go and say, "Oops, I'm wrong." And if you don't do those things, if you don't challenge yourself to find the truth, you're in trouble. And that's what's not happening today.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to share this evening. It's going to be exciting, and I appreciate you taking your time this afternoon. We could go on and on. I can tell we could do a lot of talking. I'm sure we will. But I appreciate very much your time. You mentioned a website.
You can find my work on Paul Sutliff, PaulSutliff.blogspot.com, and I'm going to be putting up the links to the GoFundMe pages. Lauren's work and my work, I think, are very much similar. She's attacking things for our national security. One of the things you'll find stuff that I've done regarding national security. I'm not I can't call myself a national security expert without any academic credentials, but I can tell you what I've shared and learned. And I say, if you go to my site and you spend some time reading the stuff, you'll be scared. I'm going to share something tonight about a border, and it's not the southern border, and it should scare every American. Every American. And what I would tell you, if you could come tonight, do it, because if you hear what I'm going to tell you tonight about this border on the north,
Yes.
every American should be scared.
Well, and for those listening to the video, that means you've got to now listen to the follow-up video, which will be his presentation this evening. Mr. Sutliff, thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time this afternoon. I look forward to getting with you again.
It was nice
Thanks.
to have done this. Thank you.